Hey everybody. So today we're going to talk about MercadoLibre. It's one of my favorite growth stocks right now. It's become one of the biggest stocks in my portfolio. If you're not familiar, this company is often referred to as the Amazon of Latin America. And the name makes sense. It is the leading e-commerce platform in several key markets, including Argentina, where it's based, and Brazil. And it operates in a few other major markets in the Latin American region. But it's so much more than just e-commerce. In addition to that e-commerce marketplace, MercadoLibre also has a massive payment processing enterprise. It's called Mercado Pago, kind of similar to the PayPal and eBay relationship when they were still kind of a combined company. So that business is getting very, very big. The company also has its own logistics platform called Mercado Envios that ships over 90% of the products sold on its marketplace. And it also has a new but fast growing lending business known as Mercado Credito. So Mercado Libre is more like the Amazon, the PayPal, and maybe even the Square, the Shopify, the eBay, all rolled into one company at a much earlier stage of the growth cycle. So the stock has not been doing well lately. The stock is down more than 55% off its 52-week high. And it's because of this dive that I've really been loading up on shares in my portfolio over the past year. But if you take a step back and look at the company's recent results, the results and the stock price tell two completely different stories, as you'll see in just a second. So if you look at Mercado Libre's latest results, it tells a completely different story than the stock price. Gross merchandise volume in its e-commerce business up 26% year over year. Total payment volume in the Mercado Pago platform up 84% year over year. That's an annualized rate of over $120 billion of payment volume. And about over two-thirds of it comes from off of the company's marketplace. Think of this as kind of a relationship like PayPal and eBay had in the early days when PayPal was a part of eBay's platform and ended up really just kind of expanding to where eBay was just kind of eventually became a small part of its business. That's really where Mercado Libre is heading with Mercado Pago. The credit business you can see there has more than tripled year over year. $2.7 billion worth of loans outstanding on the platform. And one thing to really note about that is that interest rates in Brazil and Argentina and other markets in Mercado Libre's universe have higher lending rates than you're used to in the United States, even after accounting for losses. Mercado Libre produced a 34% net interest margin. 34%. So that could be a very lucrative business as it scales. 34% of $2.7 billion is roughly $1 billion a year in profit from that part of the business, and it's not even a very big lending operation yet. So the result of all this is overall revenue grew by 57% in the business, and margins are expanding. That $250 million of net income from operations is the highest it's ever been in the company's history. So despite the stock price being down by 55%, it actually the business is doing really, really well. So Mercado Libre still has a lot of room to grow. The business sounds big. These numbers sound big. Over $8 billion in quarterly merchandise volume on the e-commerce platform. 120 billion in annualized payment volume through Mercado Pago. To put that in perspective, that's on both sides. That's less than 6% of what Amazon sells on its platform, and less than 8% of the payment volume flowing through PayPal. So to kind of compare them to their US counterparts, there's still a lot of room to grow. E-commerce adoption is relatively small in Latin America compared to the United States. Here, roughly 15% of all retail sales take place on e-commerce channels. In Latin America, it's closer to 5%. Same with fintech adoption. Cashless payments are kind of the norm here. I've gone months without using cash in the United States. That's not the case in Latin America still. The majority of transactions are still conducted in cash. So there's a lot of room for e-commerce adoption in these markets. So this isn't a low risk stock. There are a lot of things that you should know before you add it to your portfolio. One, it's obviously a cyclical business, just like anything that has to do with retail and payments. In recessions, people start to spend less. They start to go out less. They stop shopping for discretionary purchases, things like that. So you can definitely see merchandise volume and payments volume both slow down during tough times. That's one thing to keep in mind. Inflation is another thing. We think that inflation is high in the United States at 8 or 9% right now. It's much higher in some of Mercado Libre's markets. It's been over 10% since late 2021 in Brazil. In Argentina, the inflation rate just hit a sky high 71%. And the central bank is really trying to keep it from going out of control, which it's been increasing rapidly in recent months. So that's also a pretty big risk. Inflation can really cause a lot of economic turbulence when it gets to those kind of levels. And there's also competition risk. Mercado Libre is the e-commerce leader in several big markets, but not by a dominant amount, kind of like Amazon is here. There are some competitors. Amazon has a presence in most of Mercado Libre's markets. There are some other up and coming e-commerce companies. C Limited is one especially that you might want to keep an eye on. They are based in Southeast Asia, but have been moving into the Latin American market and have had some success with it with their Shopee platform. So that's worth watching. But this is still a relatively small company when you compare it to things like Amazon and PayPal, especially after the recent share price declines. I think Mercado Libre could be a home run over the long term as e-commerce, fintech continue to build out in these markets, and as the company really kind of expands in all these other newer areas like shipping and credit, and really kind of finds where its ecosystem should be going. So I'm a big fan of this one, and I will probably continue to add to my position over time. Just wanted to give my quick take on it and hope you enjoyed the video. This video is sponsored by the Motley Fool. Check out the link in the description to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now or visit fool.com/Frankel.